Are you ready? Let me know.
Yes, we're now recording.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 9:01, April 8th, 2020. I'm calling the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority meeting to order. Because we're doing this telephonically and not in person, there are some things we're going to have to do differently. I'm going to defer to Raymond to do roll call, so we have a formal roll call of attendance. He also is going to call on every vote so that he can record our vote. I'm going to ask if you make a motion on anything that you name yourself. For example, just say Mike Norwich moves, so we know who's making the motion. It'll help us go through quicker. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Raymond. He has a couple of things he needs to do, and there's some text he needs to read into the record. Raymond?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So as mentioned by the chair, there are some unique things we'll have to do since we are handling this meeting by video and phone. First, we'll do a roll call of each of the board members to ensure attendance. And as mentioned by the chair, we will also require a voice vote for each action item that we have today. So let's start with the roll call. Joyce Wilson.
Here.
Joe Wardy.
Here.
Les Parker.
Present.
Joe Fernandez.
Present.
Jim Smith.
Here.
Michael Norwich.
Here.
Luis Rosas.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We've got a full board in attendance. There are a couple of notices I'm going to read into the record now. As you know, following Governor Abbott's executive order number GA-14 relating to statewide continuity of essential services and activities during the COVID-19 disaster, this CRRMA board meeting is being held by telephone and video conference. In accordance with the various federal, state, and local orders, the public may participate in the meeting using the video link or telephone conference information found on the CRRMA's website and on the posted agenda. This meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on the CRRMA's website as soon as possible after conclusion of the meeting. In addition, for this video telephone meeting, we will be requiring a voice vote from each member on each item. We will call for a motion in a second, and as requested by the chair, if the board members can state their name as they're making the motion or the second, then we will call a voice vote from each member. The public is invited to participate in the meeting just as with all CRRMA meetings. If you are interested in asking a question or providing a comment, please submit a comment in the chat function of the video component or ask to be recognized by phone. Finally, are there any questions from the board before we move forward? Hearing none, let's begin our meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to move to agenda item 2, which is adoption of the minutes, board meeting of March 11th, 2020. Are there any discussions or amendments to? If not, can I entertain them? I'm sorry.
Second. My left.
That was a motion by Mr. Parker.
Are there any questions?
Second, Joe Fernandez.
Okay, with a motion and a second, I'll do a voice vote roll call. Joyce Wilson.
Aye.
Joe Wardy.
Aye.
Les Parker.
Aye.
Joe Fernandez.
Yay.
Jim Smith.
Aye.
Michael Norwich.
Aye.
Michael Norwich.
Aye.
Luis Rosas.
Aye.
It was approved unanimously.
Okay, item 3, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute an agreement with the city of El Paso regarding Mission Hills Park Suncycle Station.
Yes, ma'am. So this item is actually a bit of good news. Representative Schwartzbein, who's obviously the city council representative for District 1, has been very supportive of the Sun Cycle Bike Share program. And in this item, you'll see that the representative has identified $5,000 that he would like to provide to the system through the backup that's been provided, which is the agreement. We are utilizing these funds to support the operations and maintenance expenses for the Mission Hills Park Sun Cycle Station, which is our newest station. So as I mentioned, it's $5,000. We will submit invoicing to them monthly. What we'll do is prorate all of our O&M expenses across that we incur across the system and prorate it against this system. Subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item.
Jim Smith, move to
Any
approve.
questions? Okay, wait.
Joe Fernandez, second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Right?
Yes, ma'am. Here's the voice vote roll call. Joyce Wilson,
Aye.
Joe Wardy,
Aye.
Les Parker,
Aye.
Joe Fernandez,
Aye.
Jim Smith,
Aye.
Michael Norwich,
Aye.
Luis Rosas.
Aye.
Item is unanimously approved. Thank you.
Somebody have a war going on in the
Okay,
background.
agenda 4. Pardon me? All right, we're moving on to agenda item 4, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the chair to execute a revised local agreement with El Paso County for the provision of sidewalk design and construction.
I'm sorry?
I don't know what that was.
Yeah, we were getting quite a bit of noise. I was asking
Is that
Robert
you,
if you
Brenda?
could help with that. But it looks like it's been taken care of. Thank you, whoever muted. So as read into the record, this is item number 4. This relates to an interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso. As you may recall, this item was actually brought to the March board meeting and was approved. However, after the RMA board approved the draft language, the county then made some additional revisions. So what I've done as part of the backup is included the agreement that's before you today. Behind that, you'll see a red line version to see the revisions that the county has proposed. The majority of the revisions are actually just stylistic and non-substantive revisions. However, there is one substantive revision, and that is reducing the amount of funds that are available from the county from $448,000 down to $420,000. So that's the main change that's being requested. This has gone before Commissioners Court and has been approved. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item.
This is Mike Norwich. Can I ask why the funding was reduced from 480 to 420?
My understanding is that they had miscalculated the amount of funds that were available for the program. So this is the correct amount.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How
This
does
is
it
Luis
impact-
Rosas.
How does
Will
it
that-
impact the outcome, the deliverables?
Well, it doesn't yet because we have not done a procurement for this program yet. So we don't have set prices for the services that are going to be rendered just yet. However,
But this also is only you can only do 420,000 worth of work, right?
correct.
Meaning regardless of what the unit price is for concrete or labor, you only can do as much as that dollar amount will allow.
That's
Correct?
correct. That is correct. However, you'll remember this is part of the program that we're putting together where we're going to be blending various funding sources and trying to expand this into other areas. But so this is one of those.
I agree. I just don't want there to be an expectation of a larger project with reduced money.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, what we had a conference call with Atkins and with the county folks yesterday and really kind of fleshed out, got a much better feel for how we're going to be rolling out the sidewalks program, the bus bench program, the federal and locally funded components of those two programs. So as we further refine that, we'll bring that back to the board so that you all have a clearer picture of how this program is actually going to work.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
This is Les. I move to approve. This is Joe Wardy. I second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, I'll ask for the voice vote. Joyce Wilson,
Aye.
Joe Wardy,
Aye.
Les Parker,
Aye.
Joe Fernandez,
Aye.
Jim Smith,
Aye.
Michael Norwich,
Aye.
Luis Rosas.
Aye.
So unanimous vote in favor. Thank you.
All right, item 5, agenda item 5, discussion and action on board resolutions related to the Fabens Hangar and Roadway Improvement Project to authorize the executive director to execute A, work authorization number 1 with Hewitt Zollers for design services, and B, work authorization number 36 for Atkins North America for design oversight.
Okay, on this item, you may recall we've been before you all where with an interlocal agreement between the County of El Paso and the Regional Mobility Authority, whereby the county provided funds for the development of this program. This program consists of 2 different components. The first is what you see before you today for the completion of certain road work that will help users of the facility enter and exit. Specifically, there is a deceleration lane being added to Fabens Road as you come into the facility with a right-hand turn. We're also restriping when you're heading the opposite direction into the facility for a left turn lane on the existing roadway. So those are the actions that are happening today. As I mentioned, there's 2 components. The other component is the design and construction of additional hangars at the site. So what we've done in order to keep this project moving is we've broken them into these 2 separate and distinct phases. This first phase, then, we're bringing on Hewitt Zollers through our IDC program, meaning they are one of the engineering firms that is available to us on call. We've asked them to provide this fee and scope for this first very what we consider a much easier program, the deceleration lane and the striping. And they've provided their fee and scope, which you see before you is item 5A for $105,000. Atkins is being brought on through a work authorization under 5B to do the oversight for that design work. In addition, under item 5B, Atkins will also complete the package that's necessary to actually put this program out on the street for a construction contractor to bid on. So that's what's happening under 5A and 5B. So concurrent with that, Hewitt Zollers is also working on the fee and scope for the hangar design work, and we'll be back to you with that, with a different work authorization for that one as soon as they have put that one together. So that's what you see before you. Subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item as well.
Any
Jim-
questions?
Jim Smith, move to approve.
Michael Norwich, second.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second, roll call. Joyce Wilson,
Aye.
Joe Wardy,
Aye.
Les Parker,
Aye.
Joe Fernandez,
Aye.
Jim Smith,
Aye.
Michael Norwich,
Aye.
Luis Rosas.
Aye.
Unanimous vote in favor. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to item 6, which is presentation, update, and discussion on change orders recently approved by the executive director. The following programs or projects: A, the 2013 El Paso Comprehensive Mobility Plan, and B, Windrow Project.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to walk you through this PowerPoint. As you may recall, this is a process that was approved by the board some time ago, whereby change orders that are under $100,000 may be approved by the executive director. However, we must bring any approved change orders to the board for information purposes at the next available board meeting. So that's what you are going to see today. We've got 2 change orders that were approved in this manner, and none of them require board action. That's an important point. This is for information purposes only. There will be no action item after this. The first one deals with Wynn Road. We've got the map there, and these this PowerPoint will be added to the online to the website right after the meeting, so the public can pull this up. These are the 3 change orders that have been approved to date. Number 3 is the one that we approved most recently, and that I'm providing information to you about today. This was an unforeseen condition where along Pan American there were some existing conflicts with concrete that was found that was not, we didn't know about it. So we had some additional costs removing that. And sorry, so the total cost of this one is $7,718.66, and that was approved by me, I want to say 2 weeks back. The second change order then deals with East Lake Boulevard Phase 1. As you know, this one is actually nearing completion. The current contractor schedule has them completing this project later this month or early May. So we're right on schedule for this one. This shows some of the earlier change orders that were approved, and there you see number 15, an additional $25,912 for additional off-duty sheriffs to provide traffic control. This was also an unforeseen condition that was added by the county after some of the traffic control issues arose. You'll see we've done, this is the 6th change order that we've provided funds for off-duty sheriffs. That one again is $25,000. So you see on this next slide our change orders totaling about 3.6% of the total project cost out of the vehicle registration fee, and then another 1.65 out of other funds. So that's what I have for you on this one. As mentioned, there is no requirement for action. This is for informational purposes only.
Are there any questions from any board members?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to item number 7. This is also a presentation and discussion on the following performance reports for the second quarter of the fiscal year 2020. The investment report, the general financial statement, the El Paso Bike Care Sun program, general engineering consulting team, the vehicle resources. Since the finance committee couldn't meet, I asked and Robert just to put this on our agenda so we could have a brief update. We're going to kind of condense it, but I'll be back up available.
Good morning, all. This is Robert Studer, Director of Finance. As Ms. Wilson said, the Finance Committee did not meet last week as originally scheduled. So we're going to go over these just a little more detail. I don't have a PowerPoint for the investment report. There's nothing of major note for me to report. We did make just under $200,000 during the second quarter. As you're aware, we're currently having this meeting online because of COVID-19. And in response to that, the Fed took a couple quick actions to reduce rates. We have all but one of our investments are rate sensitive, and so that will lower our future returns. One thing that is a positive is we're not entering the municipal market at the moment. It's kind of jumping around all over the place, and some deals have not come in and priced at the place where municipalities have hoped, and so luckily we're not entering the market. I don't really have anything else on the investment report unless there are any questions. Okay, if there's no questions, then I'll move on to B. If you'll give me a moment, I'll bring up a PowerPoint. Okay, so as Ms. Wilson said, we're not going to spend too much time on this. As a reminder that we're going to look at our second quarter interim financial statement that's provided by the city of El Paso. The numbers have not been audited. One thing that I've mentioned in prior quarterly reports is that our trustee activity was often being delayed because of the timing of the RMA receiving the statements. We've done some process improvements so that we're able to get those statements now earlier. So whereas we used to always have 1 month behind, we're now caught up, and we caught up during the second quarter. So there's 4 months of activity during the second quarter. We're going to run through highlights, and then we've got the statement of net position, statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net position, and then the detail by fund. We'll look at our operating budget and then what to expect during the rest of 2020. During the second quarter, we made our scheduled VRF debt service payments on both bonds VRF number 1 and VRF number 2. We made our debt service payment on 601, which includes us receiving the pass-through payment from TxDOT prior to making our debt service payment. And then we also made our scheduled payments on SIB loans 2 and 3. We did not have any major changes. In fact, our net position only decreased by about $3 million during the second quarter. This was not totally unexpected. If I can pull your attention, I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen, but that unearned revenue, when we get money from the water utility on projects, we don't recognize the revenue that we use during a current fiscal year until the end of the fiscal year. So we receive some money and are using it on projects as part of the VRF or as Win Road. And so we're spending those dollars currently, but we won't actually true up how much we received from our deferred revenue until the end of the year. And so while we may have shown on paper a loss of $3 million, we actually we expect that to be smaller as the year goes on, as we start to recognize revenue that's been deferred. Mr. Fernandez, I'm going to mute your computer. I think we're getting some feedback as you signed on. Next up, I'd just like to show you our operating revenues. So that first line is bike share. Through the second quarter, we've made around $28,000 in bike share. We know that the first 6 months of the year are pretty slow, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the bike share as we get there. But the second quarter is usually by far the slowest quarter for activity as the weather is not too nice. We're still collecting a small amount of money in tolls on the Chavez Toll Road. On this Loop 375 frontage road project, it shows we've only made $1,000. We actually received 3 or 4 payments in March from TxDOT as we were late getting invoices from the contractor. And so we've collected more money from TxDOT and paid that out to the contractor, but the contractor was late getting us money. This vehicle registration fee income, we're on track to collect what we need so far. We do expect a slowdown with COVID-19 and the state allowing drivers to defer registering vehicles for I think up to 90 days, but we don't anticipate not having enough to cover our next debt service payment in June or in December, as people will have to register their vehicles eventually. And then reimbursed expenditures, I'd just like to point out we received $1.9 million from TxDOT after completing the Old Waco Tanks Road project. Originally, it was paid for by some VRF funds as matching dollars, but TxDOT had money left over, and so they provided us with a little bit extra to cover the cost. Can someone please mute their computer? Okay, sorry about that. Next up, we've got our operating expenses. One thing I'd like to point out is in this professional services, it's the third row, it's $1 million. Most of that is related to projects that we've done with the county or our part or outside of the VRF, maybe Win Road. And one thing that I'm working with the city right now on is to get that out of professional services and the way that that's being classified. And we're going to move that down into capital outlay. And then this, the professional services really start to just show things like the audit and our paying for the consultant, the accounting consultant, anything else that the organization actually does. And so that's a fix that I'm working with the city right now to make a little bit better and a little bit easier to understand. So like I said, we lost around $4 million. We know that a good chunk of that is going to be wiped out when we recognize revenue that's been deferred so far this year related to water utility projects. But this is, again, not unexpected as we pay towards projects. We're spending money faster than we're receiving it to pay off the debt. So we borrowed money. We're going to pay out that money on projects. And then the money we're collecting for paying the debt is not as large as the amount we're paying. And I'll show you that on a future slide. So here, if I can highlight the trustees fund, here's 2.9 million we've made in vehicle registration fee income. And then on the next slide, we've paid out $6.5 million towards those projects. So we've paid out more in the bond money that we borrowed than we've received, and that's totally expected and planned. At some point, in fact, we'll have no more expenses. We'll just have the revenue once we use up all of those funds. So that's a good thing. And then this 800,000 is a big chunk of that 1 million in professional services that I'm talking about, working with the city to use different accounts, and then it'll be classified down here as capital outlay because those are not our costs; those are costs for our partner entities. When we look at our own budget and not of the projects, just for the RMA and our administration, we're doing very well with salary reimbursements so far. We're going to get the America's Interchange subsidy that usually gets booked in the fourth quarter, and we just sent out some invoices for some project admin fees. We're on track, I think, to make our revenue for the current year. But we'll see if we get projects completed before the end of the fiscal year and able to bill our partner entities for some of those projects. Expenses are also on track. The annual audit just got paid in March, and we're not currently spending, I think, any extra outside of projects on the general engineering consultant. We've not spent a lot of money on media or outreach yet. Raymond and I have halted travel for the moment. And so, as always, our operating expenses are very low, and we expect to come in under budget on our operating budget. For the remainder of FY20, we have 2 more debt service payments related to the VRFs. We're going to have our Spur 601, the last actual debt payment. We'll receive one final payment from TxDOT next February, but our last debt service payment is coming up this August. And then we'll make our normal scheduled payments on our SIB loans as well in August. And then I'd just like to point out that the action that you took to re-up the memorandum of services with the city has been a huge help. We've got a dedicated resource. We've already made some big strides in the last month since that contract's been in effect, and it's really nice to have a dedicated resource for us to work with. And when we ask for something, we're getting it pretty quickly now, almost immediately, and it's really nice to have. And so that was a nice welcome change. Are there any questions?
Robert, I might have missed this, but was that presentation you just gave somewhere in the packet that we received from Raymond?
Yes, it should have been. There's 2 versions. There's the actual financial statement, and then there's the presentation. Both of them are labeled under item 7B.
Okay, so okay, I saw that. Okay. Okay, so the financial, that you just went over the financial statement or the investment report?
This was the financial statement. I did not have a PowerPoint for the investment report.
Okay, I have it. It looked different than what you presented.
So it may have just been the financial statement itself.
Yeah, okay. But the actual PowerPoint you just went through, we don't have a copy of?
I believe it's in the folder for.
Yes, it's in there.
Dropbox with some backup?
Yes, it's in there.
It's in the Dropbox?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my Dropbox is full, so I'm not taking anything else.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
These
Figure it out.
PowerPoints will also be added to the website shortly after the meeting as well.
Yeah, I'd like to have a chance to look at that a little bit more in
Sure.
depth.
And if you have questions, just reach out to me afterwards. I know we didn't have the finance committee, so we didn't have a chance to go over it. But if we'd like, we can try and do a finance committee through Microsoft Teams in the next couple of weeks if we want to go through these in more depth. Any other questions? Okay, then I'm going to bring up the bike share presentation. Give me one moment for that to load. So as I mentioned during the finance presentation, the second quarter is usually the slowest quarter for bike share activity. Weather is just not normally too nice. We usually get a good bounce back in at spring break, and then the summer months are very busy, but December, January, and February are not too busy. With the COVID-19 situation, Mr. Taya sent out an email to the board to let them know some of the changes that our team are doing. We've upgraded cleaning costs and are using disinfectant, and the team is very active in keeping the bikes clean and maintained. The team actually is working separately so that they're not violating any of the social distancing rules. So they're working more individually than going out as a group. We have seen some really good traffic at some of the neighborhood stations at Mission Hills and Madeline Park as people are using our bikes as an exercise option. They don't actually, parks are closed down, but they can ride the bikes in the streets. So we're seeing positive activity in those. Second quarter numbers, we won't spend a lot of time with. Ridership was up. It was good. We did have better performance. February actually looked really strong. And one of the big changes that we saw is normally peak hours are maybe 5, 7 o'clock. They starting a little bit earlier at 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and more people seem to be riding in the afternoons. I know I took a couple rides using the new Mission Hills Park station, and there were several other people that were using the bikes when I rode them in January in the afternoons, and that station has just been a real big help for us. San Jacinto continues to be the busiest station by far. Mission Hills is doing well to connect that northern part in the neighborhoods, and then people continue to use the app more than they had been. I'm going to jump through a couple of these. I just want to show you on this chart here at the bottom one, you can see that the time people are riding it much earlier in the afternoon than they did beforehand, and this is good. This is expanding our customer base and getting a different group of users than our usual social users riding Sunday and Saturday and Friday nights. This is another group of users using the bikes afternoons on the weekends. Changing the format a little bit of our finances, I wanted to give you, I'm hoping, a quicker snapshot of how we're doing. So first up, we've got our FY20 second quarter. This is pretty par for the course for us. Our expenses usually are right around this $47,000 mark. And revenue for the second quarter tracked right with where we normally are and ended up at around $8,000. We are always running at a deficit. This is our worst quarter, though, as far as how it looks, because the ridership is so low. Year to date, you can see our expenses are doubled. They're pretty standard. So we're just under $100,000, but the revenues we made about $18,000 more during the first quarter of 2020, and so that helps offset some of the losses we took in the second quarter. We'll see how things go. I know March was not good. It was about half of what it normally is for us, and we'll have to play it by ear with how we handle operations due to the COVID situation. Program lifetime to date, we still have around $200,000 remaining. Obviously, every single quarter we're eating into that. I know we had a sponsorship opportunity that we had identified and we're lining up earlier this quarter. I'm not sure how that's going to play out now with COVID-19, and so we'll report back to you on that if we have any movement. And then here's the net ridership revenue. So I wanted to show you that if you see the dark purple line is 2020, and we are right on track with where we've been the last 2 years as far as revenue to this point. And that's cumulative as the year goes along. We were doing better earlier in the year, and then the second quarter kind of slowed down a little bit, but we're right on track with where we normally are. Are there any questions on the bike share? Okay, then I don't have
move
anything
on.
else for you.
Is that it?
Yes, so that leads us to item 7D, which is the general engineering consultant team's use of local resources. Those have been provided as part of the backup as well. So we'll leave it as part of the backup unless you have any questions. So outside of that, we really don't have anything else for you on item 7.
Does anyone have any questions about 7G? If not, I would just suggest that if the finance committee decides to convene, and if it's electronically over the next 30 to 60 days, they can go through it and make sure that the company.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. So the last item is public comment. Do you have any public comment?
I'm not seeing any requests through the meeting chat function. Are there any questions from the public or comments? Hearing none, I think that's all we have for you today.
Okay, so are there any other questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have a question, Jim.
Second.
This is Jim. I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
All right, go ahead, Jim.
Raymond, do we have a planning committee scheduled?
No, we don't. I'll work with you. As you and I discussed, I think the idea was let's get through this meeting, see how it goes, and I think it went fairly well. So we can schedule a planning committee meeting for as early as next week, and we can use this same platform.
Okay.
I'll send you I'll send you a draft agenda for your input later today or tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is that committee fully organized with board members now?
Yes, it is. So I'll send you the committee roster for your final approval, Ms. Wilson. But Mr. Rosas has agreed to sit on that planning committee, which is where we have the vacancy.
Okay, perfect. That's what I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other questions? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
Actually, I don't think we have a
Second
motion.
adjourn, less.
Okay, we've got a motion from Mr. Parker and a second.
Jim,
Second, Norwich.
A motion and a second. Why don't we do the,
Norwich.
yes, ma'am. Why don't we do the voice vote for the record to adjourn the meeting at 9:38. Joyce Wilson,
Aye.
Joe Wardy,
Aye.
Les Parker,
Aye.
Joe Fernandez,
Aye.
Jim Smith,
aye.
Michael Norwich,
Aye.
Luis Rosas.
Aye.
Unanimously approved to adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone,
Bye-bye.
for your time and patience. Good job, staff.
Thank you.
Bye,
Appreciate it.
everyone.